Hello, my lovelies, and welcome back to this series of appendix videos for the Ages of Chaos, a Codex Chaos Space Marines 9th edition. As promised, we're going to be taking a bit of a deep dive into each of the legions, each of the established legions, renegade warbands, etc., and seeing how they pan out, how they function in this new edition, because it's actually worth doing arguably for the first time since, maybe Codex Chaos Space Marines 3.5, it's actually worth doing. I suppose you could have done it for Traitor's Hate as well. Much of which, by the way, Traitor's Hate, much of which is sort of brought into these little supplements that are included in the Codex. A lot of the details, a lot of the war gear and whatnot from Traitor's Hate are just sort of transplanted into here, modified a bit so they work in 9th edition. But we're going to start... Well, where else are you going to start, really? But with Prime Legion, at the very, very top of the pile, the Black Legion. One of the oldest Chaos Space Marine legions in the background, like the World Eaters and the Emperor's Children that were detailed in Realms of Chaos Slaves to Darkness way back in the 1980s. The Black Legion were originally detailed in that book. They were one of the weirder little army lists that were right at the back of the book, and one of the first examples of I suppose what would later come to be called a Chaos Undivided army. Even way back when, before that was really even a concept. And since then, their background has changed a lot. Hell of a lot. There's, in fact, a lot of stuff from the established background of the Black Legion has changed dramatically, just as the background of Horus has changed dramatically. In the original background, during his... Horus isn't wounded on the moon of Davin, as he is in the Horus Heresy books. In the original background, he's inducted into the warrior lodges of the human tribes who exist on Davin, and it's through their rites and ceremonies that he partakes in that he becomes possessed by a demon. That's actually what happens to Horus. And in the original background, the Black Legion emulated that factor, so they had loads of possessed Chaos Space Marines. That's not true anymore. Horus wasn't possessed by a demon. He was sort of corrupted in a more direct way. It's down to his choices, ultimately, which is a better way of doing it, actually, because it gives Horus more agency. It's not the fact that the Horus who instigated the heresy is just possessed by a demon. It is still Horus that's doing it, right? It gives him a little bit more character and agency. But beyond that, one of the biggest changes to the Black Legion's background has come more recently. So we've had the whole thing with the Black Crusades. So in the original description of the Black Crusades, which is way back in Codex Chaos Space Marines 2nd edition, they were all failures. Abaddon was driven back at every single time. He succeeded in doing a few little bits and pieces, like claiming Drachnien from beneath the Labyrinth of Silence on Alanor, and that kind of thing. But for the most part, they were failures. Recent iterations of that background have rejigged it so that each of these Black Crusades was actually a success. There was a victory that was achieved behind the scenes, which brought Abaddon's wider design closer to fruition, ultimately, which has obviously culminated with the destruction of Cadia, the opening of the Cicatrix Maledictum, and so on and so forth. So basically, they've rewritten it so that Abaddon is not a 13-time spectacular failure. He's actually a 13-time spectacular success, and much smarter than anyone else on the board, so it seems. Another big change with the Black Legion is originally, when their background was originally detailed, they were primarily formed from the remnants of the Sons of Horus, right? Which makes sense. That's kind of still true. They were originally formed from the remnants of the Sons of Horus, but not just the Sons of Horus. Also members of lots of other traitor legions as well, who were disenfranchised and disaffected with what had become of the traitor legions, of their parent legions, of their primarchs, and so on and so forth. So this came about, of course, in Aaron Dembski-Bowden's Black Legion books. So when the Black Legion is originally founded, it's actually a kind of quorum of different exiles from different traitor legions. So you've got Iskander Kane, for example, from the Thousand Sons, who may or may not be Egethmor the Deceiver. We don't know. Or may not be Zarafiston, Abaddon's right-hand sorcerer. We don't know. It's all sort of up in the air. But it was actually a sort of coalescence of members of different traitor legions, as opposed to just the remnants of the Sons of Horus. And since then, it has become this mass coagulation, this coalescence of warbands and renegades and traitors from not only all of the traitor legions, but also recently turned traitor chapters, renegade warbands, and so on and so forth. It's much bigger and more expansive in terms of its operation and background than it ever was. Another big change is that the Black Legion are now preeminent. They are the power within the Eye of Terror and beyond. They are the prime Chaos Space Marine Legion. And that leads a lot of people to conflate them with the Ultramarines on the Loyalist side. The Black Legion are the equivalent of the Ultramarines, if you like. I say that's actually not the case at all. They're actually the opposite. Whereas the Ultramarines are the ultimate conformists. They are down the line adherents of the Codex Astartes, and they have particular ways of fighting, particular doctrines, and they cleave to their ideology in the manner of a religious faith. The Black Legion do exactly the opposite. They are this mass of differing warbands and belief systems and ideologies, all from different legions, all under different war leaders and dark apostles and sorcerers, all of whom have their own agendas. The only thing cohering them is Abaddon, really. It's the fear of Abaddon. Beyond that, they operate in so many different ways, and that's actually represented here. One of the things that really got me, there is this wonderful stratagem for the Black Legion, Confluence of Traitors. And this basically acknowledges in the rules what is now established in the background. So, Confluence of Traitors, the Black Legion's ranks are hosts of warriors of diverse origins, enabling their warbands to draw upon an array of deadly skills. So, for one command point per turn, you can actually select a Black Legion Heretic Astartes unit, and then you can select a different Legion trait for them to use up to the end of that turn. That's fucking brilliant. That's so useful. Not only is that really useful and adaptable, it means that you've got established in the rules, in the crunch, what is true in the background, what is true in the fluff, the fact that the Black Legion are not this sort of monolithic block. You can do almost what you like. If you have a Black Legion warband, you could have a Black Legion warband that's derived from a splinter of the Thousand Sons, or the Death Guard, or the Word Bearers, or the Iron Warriors, or that's derived from an entire Loyalist chapter that turned traitor. It's really cool, I've got to say. Really, really cool. They've got quite a few good stratagems, actually, have the Black Legion. I think that's where a lot of their strength lies, to be honest. Their stratagems, they do really emphasize them as being these shock attack troops, because that's what they do. The whole ethos of the Black Legion under Abaddon, and certainly under Horus, was go for the throat, go for the head, the tip of the spear, which again, there's another stratagem called the tip of the spear, It's very, very cool indeed. In terms of their Legion trait, I would say that it's not the most sort of wow, spectacular Legion trait. That actually goes to, I would say, either the Creations of Bile or the Iron Warriors, and maybe the Word Bearers. Their Legion traits are friggin' spectacular. But what the Black Legion trait does, it's called Black Crusaders. So, like all of the traits, it's separated into two parts. So, in the first one, basically, you can ignore any or all modifiers to combat attrition tests if they're taken for a Black Legion unit, which is fine. It's workmanlike, it's fine. It means that they're not going to be doing much running away, basically. They're too afraid of Abaddon, so that kind of makes sense. The second half is where it's at. So basically, each time a model with this trait makes an attack, add 1 to that attack's hit roll if that attack is a ranged attack and the target was the closest eligible enemy unit to the attacking model when its unit was selected to shoot, or that attack is a melee attack, and the attacking model's unit made a charge move this turn. So basically, it forces you, when you are a Black Legion army, to go on the absolute offensive. You want to be closing range with the enemy. You want to be in charge range. You want to be in when you're talking long range, you want to be in range of the targets that you want. And if you are, they'll do the business. They will almost always hit their target. It makes them quite elite. You know, if you're making mass shooting attacks with a Terminator unit or with a Chosen unit or a Havoc unit or something like that, it's very good. It's workmanlike and dependable. It's very dependable. You're almost certainly going to benefit from this trait, regardless of what's going on. Then you combine it with certain other rules, like, for example, the Let the Galaxy Burn trait, special rule, which applies to all of the traitor legions. It means that these guys are going to be doing extra hits. They're going to be scoring hits quite a lot. It works very, very, very well indeed. They also have a custom secondary objective, like all of the traitor legions, which is despoil dominions. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not as good as some of the others, but it's reasonably easy to fulfill. And again, it kind of forces a particular way of play, which is quite aggressive and quite spectacular. If you pull it off, it's going to look really, really good on the battlefield, and it's going to make your opponent go, okay, wow, that's impressive. Their warlord traits are generally very, very good indeed. Veteran Raider, a consummate raider both in the Eye of Terror and on countless worlds in real space. This warlord knows when to strike and when to retreat. Basically, this it's one of those warlord traits that it's a sort of aura trait, and it allows Black Legion units that are near the warlord to shoot at and declare a charge even if they fell back, so quite useful on a tactical level. Indomitable is brilliant. This warlord has done little but fight in the millennia since Horus's defeat, and he grows more resilient with each battle. Each time an attack is allocated to this warlord, half the damage characteristic of that attack, rounding up. So it's basically making your warlord that little bit more survivable. Merciless Overseer. So the warlords of the Black Legion emulate Abaddon, basically, and they don't tolerate failure. So basically, in your command phase, you can select one friendly Black Legion unit within 6 inches of your warlord. Until the start of your next command phase, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, if your army is engaged in either wanton destruction or wanton slaughter, that unit is considered to be engaged in wanton massacre for the attack instead. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. You can sort of... It means you're going to be playing quite tactically with this warlord and with the units that you want to apply this to. But if you can sort of maneuver them into the right position at the right time, it's going to be pretty bloody good, that one. Soul Eater is one of those that you want to put on a Demon Prince or something like that. It makes them into a bit more of a melee monster, you know? Trusted War Leader. This warlord is a high-ranking member of the Black Legion and part of the Despoilers Inner Circle. Oh, so it's basically like it's a way of emulating the Izakarion, which is that group of chosen champions who are Abaddon's Inner Circle. So people like Iskander Kane, for example. While this warlord is on the battlefield, each time you spend a command point to use a stratagem, you can roll 1d6 on a 5+. That command point is refunded. Most people are going to go for that. Under the new rules, most people are going to go for that because command points are becoming less and less available as time goes on, and so anything like that is going to be phenomenally useful. And then you've got Paragon of Hatred. This exemplar of undying bitterness has sworn never to rest in their eternal vendetta against the Imperium as they vent their loathing against their most hated foes. You can reroll charge rolls made for this warlord. Each time this warlord fights, if it is within engagement range of any enemy units, then until the fight is resolved, add 1 to the attack's characteristic of this warlord. Oh, and if the enemy has the Imperium keyword, add die 3 attacks instead of 1. So that's pretty fun. That's a nice little sort of almost role-playing warlord trait. It's not bad. It's not bad. All of the warlord traits are good. I can see why you would take any one of them. As I said, the stratagems are kind of where it's at for the Black Legion. They're all very aggressive for the most part. Very, very aggressive indeed. But I can see situations where any one of these stratagems could be the turning point in either a turn or indeed an entire game if deployed correctly. Talking of the Izakarion, there is a stratagem called Lord of the Izakarion, which is a requisition stratagem. Abaddon's chosen generals are known as the Izakarion and are the greatest war leaders of the Black Legion. Use this stratagem after nominating a Black Legion character model to be your warlord, and you can generate one additional Black Legion warlord trait for a different character. So basically it's a way of demonstrating that when the Black Legion go to war, they're always led by a confluence of warlords, of trusted war leaders. That's pretty good. And in practical terms, that's pretty good as well. Being able to take another warlord trait, it's not bad, especially the aura-based ones, the ones that affect your troops and whatnot. The relics, again, they're kind of workmanlike. They're all good. They all do something very specific. And they're all particularly useful. There's nothing in here that makes me go, oh wow, like there are in, say, the Night Lords or the Alpha Legion. But they're all perfectly useful. There's a lot of weapons like Gorsevex's Teeth, which is basically like a demon-possessed chainsword. There's a specialist armor that derives, again, it's referencing back to the Horus Heresy. So the Veilbreaker plate. So this is a derivation of the Justarian plate, which was the specialist Black Legion Terminators from way back in the Horus Heresy. It's not bad. It's okay. One of the most useful is going to be the Sightless Helm. The lenses of this helm remain forever dark, the wearer unable to perceive the galaxy with their own eyes. Instead, strange warp senses are granted by the helm's machine spirit, illuminating the foe's weakness. Each time the bearer makes an attack, you can ignore any or all hit roll, weapon skill, and ballistic skill modifiers. Each time the bearer makes an attack, improve the armor penetration characteristic of that attack by 1. Each time the bearer makes an attack, the target does not receive the benefits of cover against that attack. That's good. That's very, very, very nice indeed. In fact, there is one, now that I mention it, there is one that makes me go, ooh, and that's the Cloak of Conquest. So this patchwork garment is fashioned from scraps of fabric, telling of the wearer's many conquests. From the mantles of Adeptus Astarte's heroes to the banners of the Astra Militarum, with each victory, the cloak is further adorned. The bearer has the following ability, Cloak of Conquest and Aura. While a friendly Black Legion core or Black Legion character unit is within 6 inches of the bearer, that unit has the objective secured ability. That's really good. That's actually excellent, now that I think about it. If you can get that, again, if you can maneuver that character with the Cloak of Conquest into a particular position where they are affecting multiple Black Legion units and you are defending a particular objective that's tactically useful, that could mean the difference between winning a game and losing a game. That's really good. Really, really good. Better than most of the weapons and things, actually. I imagine most people will be going for that one. Most Black Legion players will be going for that one. But yes, the Black Legion are really well represented. There has been a tendency for them to be a bit bland in previous editions. Their Warlord traits, their Legion traits have always been a bit meh. Their Warlord traits have always been a bit eh. And their relics have always been a bit too workmanlike, but now they are a little bit more how they're supposed to be. They really do fulfill their criteria as the Prime Legion. I can really see people relying on the Black Legion list as sort of like the workhorse of the legions, because everything works really well together, which is exactly how they're supposed to be. I mean, really, this Codex, it could be called Codex Black Legion, because that's what the core army list really represents. It's the way the Black Legion works together. Very impressive indeed. It's nice to see them getting the kind of attention that like the Ultramarines tend to get, getting something a little bit more special. And of course, when you combine them with Abaddon, who has special, not only is he like just insane in and of himself. He has special rules that affects Black Legion units only. And there's also, of course, I mean, there's the other special character as well. There's Harken Worldclaimer, who has always been a bit ever since he was released. He's very good now. He's very, very good indeed. And again, has very particular benefits for Black Legion armies. So that makes him very, very useful indeed. If you're going to take a Black Legion army, you might want to consider Harken as one of your HQ choices. He will do the business. And of course, you've got Abaddon. I mean, Abaddon really, I would say, should only be played in narrative play. I would not consider him for competitive play because he's just too good. It's kind of unfair when you've got Abaddon on the battlefield. He's a little bit too much. He's a bit insane, to be perfectly honest. But then, that's what he's supposed to be, isn't it? So yeah, that's the Black Legion, and I've got to say, I am so pleased with the way they're represented now. So pleased. When we come back, I think we'll go for maybe one of... I think we might do... let's go for... Should we do the Iron Warriors next? Because I really like the Iron Warriors in this book. Yeah, we'll do the Iron Warriors next. Stay tuned until then, my loves. Bye-bye!